So when I hear people say, I am not ready yet to bring my fullness forth or my truth forth, what I'm hearing is, at this time, I trust my shadow to keep me safe more than I trust my light to keep me safe. And a sacred part of this work, it is to expand your definition of safety to include more of the expression of your light. Welcome to another episode of ENHEARTENED. And this one is going to be a little different. It's going to be a solo cast and at the same time a conversation with you, because many of the questions I will be addressing in this episode I received directly from the audience, from the feedback you've sent me, and I'm deeply grateful for that. The theme we will be exploring has to do with shadow integration and visibility and allowing yourself to be seen. And I want to expand a little bit on the theme before we even begin. When you think about the shadow itself, which represents the aspects of you that you've been conditioned to repress, to deny on one end, and also visibility and allowing yourself to be fully seen, they are almost antithetical. They are standing on polar opposite aspects of the spectrum of your self-image, of who you are. Usually what we tend to give to the world is only what we've deemed acceptable. But allowing yourself to be fully seen inevitably brings forth the shadow. That means if you are holding that intent somewhere within you, if you say, I crave to express my true nature, do not be surprised if what comes up first is shadow material that is ripe to be integrated, because your putting forth your fullness is going to inevitably invite to the surface things that you repressed. And I think this is something that most people are not very conscious of when they say, I want to express my authenticity. I want to bring forth my true nature. I want to share my gifts with the world. I want to do this and I want to do that. It inevitably invites a deeper journey of integration. And this is what we're going to be talking about: how to combine both, how to work with both, so that the journey of unleashing your fullness in all areas of your life can be more graceful and hopefully more sustainable and more embodied. If any of this is resonating with you, you are at the right place. So the first question is, we're going to begin at the root. Why is visibility so terrifying for so many of us, even though we crave it? And I think that is a big deal of a paradox. I've said this multiple times. Most people think they're afraid of being seen, and that's just something we think. But that's because we have attached so many things to allowing ourselves to be fully expressed. So many fears, so much pain, so much anxiety, apprehensions. And some of these fears may be informed by your past. And some of these fears might still be operating in your body. And therefore, the mere thought of allowing yourself to be seen is terrifying. And you might think, oh, I am afraid of being seen, whereas what you're truly afraid are the ramifications, the potential consequences. And some of these potential consequences might no longer be accurate, but an ancient part of you is still operating from that perception. So that's the reason why the thought of allowing yourself to be seen fully can be so challenging. Being seen itself is not what we fear, that's what we crave. We pay to be witnessed, only in places where we feel like, okay, what I'm going to receive is celebration, appreciation, and all of these different things. That says it is something that is inherent. So, what we deeply fear is what we have attached to the experience, informed by our past, by our history. And this is a big part of what gets to be undone. And that paradox is strengthened by childhood experiences. We have many experiences where being visible was unsafe, where some specific traits that you expressed would be shamed or maybe even punished. So the the point is we have so much unfinished business with allowing ourselves to be fully seen. And in when you look at things that way, even your psyche gets to be recalibrated in your full expression. Because for so many, it's something that's foreign. That is the reason why some people have what we often like to call vulnerability hangovers, meaning you allowed yourself to be real in places where you usually don't, and then your system is taking some time to really work that out. There's often the aftershock of allowing yourself to be seen where you're like, oh, have I been too much? Did I share too much? Is there any retaliation that is coming up? The inner child within you wondering, am I going to get punished? So there is that exposure that is very vulnerable. And that sometimes your psyche, your nervous system hasn't been trained in being able to ground, being able to handle. And that's also part of the journey of embracing full visibility. And another part of it is your relationship with the aspects of yourself that you used to hide. What is your own relationship with your own power? What is your own relationship with quote unquote your bigness? What is also your relationship with your shame? What is your relationship with maybe the part of you that still carries fear? Are you at odds with that part of you? Or would you say that you have a more harmonious relationship with that part of you? Is your inner critic flaring up every single time you see yourself as imperfect? So this is amplifying that state of inner tension, inner polarization within ourselves is also influencing our capacity to express our fullness externally in your relationships, in your workplace, in your capacity to share your ideas and your gifts. All of that plays a part. And that's where I want to start with. So, one thing that is important to clarify here, allowing yourself to be seen, it goes beyond having a stage. It goes beyond being on social media. It goes beyond sharing your art online or your voice online. It goes beyond the stage. It is something that is at the core of how you express yourself in all areas of your life. And there's this old saying, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. But where I would love to go with that is when there is repression in your personal life, when there is repression in your own relationships, it gets infused in all the different other areas of your life as well. So, in a sense, allowing yourself to be seen is you saying out loud, I am here. Like, I am here. It is you being able to name what you need, to express your wants and desires, even when you have no guarantees that they're going to be met. It's you living in alignment even when it disappoints others. It is you being emotionally transparent, not just with yourself, but also with other people. And at the core of our fear that is attached to allowing ourselves to be seen, I usually identify five five main flavors of that fear. One is the fear of humiliation, which is I might get embarrassed, I might get ridiculed, I might get made fun of and mocked, I might get shamed, I might get, you know, humiliated, essentially. And that fear is very central as the reason why we're terrified of public speaking. The fear of alienation, which is I might be an outcast or might get alienated if I allow my true nature to be seen, to be expressed. I might not belong. At the core of it, there's a core need, the need for belonging. The fear of humiliation. At the core of it, there's another need, a need for or a desire for praise, a desire for appreciation. You might even say desire for validation. And another one is the fear of loss. You know that can get associated with allowing yourself to be seen, which is if I allow myself to be seen, I might lose a specific relationship. I may lose the affection of somebody. I may lose the approval of somebody. I may lose status. I may lose my job. I may lose this, and this. And therefore, we settle sometimes for losing ourselves or losing our connectedness with our true nature instead of losing something else. Well, that's another big fear. Another one would be the fear of persecution. It's like I might get attacked if I express my true nature. That one has a deep ancestral layer. It's like the tall poppy syndrome, some people would call it that way. I like to think about it as, maybe the Jesus wound. If you pay attention to many masters, they came and they really expressed their light so bright, and some of them got attacked for it, persecuted for it. And that's just the fourth one. And the last one, I would say it's a fear of an inner death. A fear that a part of you might be invited to die if you allow yourself to be fully seen. Because I really think allowing yourself to express your true nature is going to cost you who you were pretending to be. And that's appropriate. So, in a journey of embracing full expression, liberation, there is a necessity to challenge and to meet all these 5 fears within yourself. And every single one of them is actually a key for self liberation when you approach it with the proper attitude. So, when we are not really ready, some of the protective patterns that might keep you hidden when you're not ready to face these 5 fears might be overthinking, perfectionism, chronic preparation, for instance, or you might have the I need another certification syndrome. Um, you might even use sometimes humor as a deflection. Chronic people pleasing is a form of it when we're afraid of persecution. We can get so afraid of change as well, which is a sign that we dread an inner death of an aspect of ourselves. And these are all the ways, just some of the ways we can protect ourselves from the initiation. And what I've seen in my personal experience, the moment you start holding that thought, I crave to express more of my true nature, your inner environment, your shadow will start acting out to dislodge, to remove these fears that are suppressing your expression. So you might be hearing that and start to realize that, hey, maybe some of the situations that have been challenging in my life at the moment are just the natural outcome of me expressing the desire to be more seen in my truth, authenticity. So let me just put it that way. Another question I often get is how does shame show up in visibility wounds? And shame is the voice that often says, if you see me, you will reject me. And the hidden belief that I've seen so many people operate from is I am either too much, not enough. And I see it as the emotion that creates the deepest amounts of fragmentation. And one personal memory of me dealing with like deep shame was I will always remember this one, probably. It's when I started sharing some of my music. I've I started writing music when I was in my early teenage years, probably 13, 14, and I wanted to write in English. And for those of you who might not be aware, my first language is French. And I was just so inspired by so many country singers, and they were able to roll the stories on the tongues with so much grace and ease. I just wanted to write like that, write music like that. And one event that caused me, I think, a great deal of shame is I had this tiny handbook, a tiny handbook of songs that I had written. And as a young teenage boy, a big part of it were love songs. And I had a friend who needed to get a book in my bag. And I told that friend, go ahead and get the book in my bag. And he went and found the book he was looking for. He needed another book. I don't know if it was a math book or it didn't matter. Another, he wasn't looking for that book about music. But as he was looking for it, he found the other tiny book that I had, almost like a journal with all the songs that I had written in there. And he took it and started showing it to a girl in the class that I had a crush on. And I just heard them starting to laugh. And every time I would turn back, they would hide what they were looking at. And at some point, I don't know, you often have this moment of intuition like, something is not really, it is not quite going well. And then I went and looked even deeper. I got close to them and they were looking at the songs. And, I felt exposed because some of the songs were actually inspired by the girl I had a crush on. And it's as if somebody got inside my inner chamber, the inner chambers of my heart without permission and saw something that I wasn't really ready to disclose yet. And with that, there was just a strong feeling of inadequacy, of shame, of embarrassment, of ridicule. And that's the key part here. At that time, what happened back then was I worked harder to hide the poet, the wordsmith, the part of me that is interested in writing and music. I worked even harder to conceal that part of me. I did not have the emotional capacity to fully embrace it and to be like, yeah, these are my songs you guys found, you know? And I don't appreciate the fact that you got in there without my permission. And, I didn't have the capacity to hold myself spine strong and heart open, which is what allowing ourselves to be in our full expression is demanding of us. Spine strong, open heart. And it is something that I've had to practice way later. We're talking about years after. But shame is a big aspect of why we fragment ourselves, of why we hide. So, the deeper cost of staying hidden is that self abandonment. When I was younger, my self abandonment looked like repressing the artist, repressing the writer, repressing the poet, repressing the part of me that is deeply moved by words. So that deep ache of self-abandonment is something that we get to undo. It erodes our self-worth. It takes a toll on creativity, on purpose, on relationships. And ultimately what you silence within yourself becomes the source of your suffering. And that's the deeper cost. It's the deeper cost of staying hidden is actually the aliveness that we do not reclaim. And the powerful invitation is to undo it, to undo that repression. So, how does shadow integration, how does shadow work supports the process of becoming more unleashed, becoming more visible? First, with the understanding that the reasons why you're hiding or why you haven't been as expressed as you want, it's not because you are not strong willed enough. It's not because there is something broken about you. It's only because there is a part of you that you haven't fully reconciled with yet. So the journey is an inner reconciliation. Let's take an example. the example I just gave you with having friends back then, finding my songs book and laughing about it. I hadn't reconciled yet with the part of me that was feeling that shame, the part of me that wanted to be so perfect that until it was perfect, no one had the right to look at what I had written. So there was a journey of reconciling with that fully in the best of my ability. And when you don't integrate your shadow material, it takes the mic. It leads some of your choices, whether you might be aware of that or not. And sometimes repression will turn into projection. The things you have repressed within yourself, you'll often project it on the outside. And that is your shadow attempting to tell you, hey, this is an aspect of me that you have forgotten. Allow yourself to get close to it, reclaim it, and unwrap it. Take out the shame, the guilt, the fear, the sadness that you have wrapped this part of me with. Reconcile with me. Visibility is about reclaiming the parts of you were told to mute, and that's an important part. So, some signs that you might be run by some unseen shadow material around visibility that may look like avoiding opportunities even when they feel called. It might be criticizing others that you perceive as too much, too visible, too expressive. And that is sometimes a shadow projection. And within that judgment that they are too loud, too much, too out there, too visible, sometimes there is an aspect of your own envy that says, I wish I could express myself in that way, but I won't even claim that desire because deep down I don't feel like I'm even allowed. It can show up as feeling resentful towards other people who are expressed, who are allowing their art, beauty, voice, emotions to be out there as imperfectly as they can. It may also look like an internal collapse when attention is directed towards you. So these are signs that there is shadow material around visibility that you are invited to fully reclaim, that you're invited to reconcile with. And your nervous system plays a big central role in it because they often talk about how the body keeps the score. The body also keeps the record of what visibility has meant for you before. And that record needs to be readjusted. There's a deep somatic recalibration that is necessary if you are to allow yourself to be fully expressed. And that these fears, they often show up as safety responses. And these safety responses, they are usually inhibitions, meaning we have this dimmer switch within ourselves that is kind of control. Am I too much? Am I not enough? Too expressive? Not expressive enough? So there is a repatterning, and I would go as far as saying a reparenting that is needed around allowing your full expression to come forth. And that is a big part of the work. That's a big, huge part of the work. It's about expanding your nervous system's capacity first to go internally and meet the imprint, meet the fears, the pain that you have encoded within yourself about visibility so that you can resolve it. And then expanding your nervous system's capacity to now practice a new way of being out there in the world, within your relationships, in your work, in your business. Doesn't matter where you go. It's like expanding your capacity to let your truth call the shots. A big important part. So, and through that work, a question that often comes up is what is the difference between expression and performance? What I've seen is performance, just like an artist that goes on the stage. It's about self-expression with with the intention of receiving approval. And that's what the performance is. You want the audience to clap, and that's appropriate if that's what you're looking for. When you go on a stage, you want the audience to clap. So, in that sense, you are performative. And again, there is no judgment there. But expression is just coming from the desire to bring forth your wholeness. It is self expression just from wholeness. And what I've seen is so many spiritual creatives will sometimes perform the truth. Sometimes it will feel like an act. But when there is something really embodied, there's a difference. There is not some striving. There's no striving. There's just being. It's not performative. It's not. It's embodied. It is integrated. It's collected. And when you tune into it, it is the kind of energy that brings your heart at peace. It is not argumentative. And that's a key important part of heart centered and really properly rooted visibility work. So, what I would love to offer to you now is a few tiny daily things you can begin to embrace to reclaim more of your voice. And I'm going to offer a few prompts, maybe a small prompt. And this prompt is this one: if I could say one honest thing today, it would be one thing that I often crave to express on a daily basis that I usually don't express is, and then complete the prompt in the most open hearted way you can. In the most open hearted way you can. The permissions I need to give to myself to be fully unleashed today or to be more expressed today these permissions are, I'm inviting you to sit with that and to see what comes up for you. Another one would be an aspect of me that I need to reconcile with so that I can express more of my true nature is what comes up for you, what emerges for you. And by the way, if this is something that you would love to dive in deeper, I have a 6 week journey that is starting very soon. It is starting April 27th. It's called Seen, and it's a place where we undo all the hidden forces that are dimming your light and muting your voice. It's a 6 week journey of deep internal recalibration. I'm going to say more about that soon, but I will keep going with some questions that I've received. Another one that I've received was there a moment in my own journey where I was terrified of being visible and chose to show up anyway? There are so many moments in my life like that. And I would say one of the biggest arc was when around 2018 we decided to stop a previous business endeavor. We shut down a gym we had in Montreal. And I was already feeling compelled to do this kind of work, but I was afraid. I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel trained enough. I felt like I could take one more training, one more certification. And I was basically on the fence. And around that time, what I decided to do was to just start writing online. We're talking about the year 2018. I wasn't trying to get a clientele yet. I was sharing more about my work. And initially, I was in a health coaching space. And I had already a pretty decent following there from my years in health coaching, but I completely changed. And part of me knew I was going to lose many of the people who were following me for my previous endeavors. So I completely changed my name. Before that time, my name on most social media platforms was Coach X. That's how I was known. And I changed it. I embraced my name, Xavier Dagba. I just changed everything to that. And I lost a lot of people. A lot of people were just like, what is this dude doing? Why would he even do that? Why not just like pursue even more the online fitness coach thing? And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. That was just a proxy. It was a shadow career. It was something that I was doing to avoid the deeper calling. And I started the difficult, challenging recalibration. And the sensations that were coming up in my body right then, there was actually a great deal of relief. There was a great deal of relief. It's as if I had dropped a big weight, like a big blanket of invisibility. And at the same time, sometimes this thing of rejection, of people leaving, losing people, this thing of like clients telling me, yeah, which makes sense. Like, I'm not really into what you are doing right now. I was just here for the, you know, nutrition plan, workout plans, and stuff like that. I'm not into all of that part. So there was this journey. I would say the year 2018 was a deep year of recalibration, profound year of recalibration. So that's just an example that may be a little big, but that the moments where I've experienced the fear of visibility and allowed myself to show up anyways, they happen more often than you might think. When I get invited to give a talk and the audience is like, a decent size audience, it still is at times challenging. But now I have just developed more of the capacity to be with it, to stay in it, to be open hearted as I do it. And that is the key part. That is the key aspect of this work is it is expanding your capacity to be with the holy friction. And by holy friction, I mean this call from your inner self that is inviting you to disclose, to reveal more of your true nature. It's a real journey of revelation. And sometimes when you are seen for your truth, it is not always flowers that come with it. Sometimes it's going to be challenge, and that's okay. But beyond everything, there's a deep aliveness that also comes with it. And at the beginning, sometimes there is a grief of lost time because a part of you can be like, geez, I didn't know that it was even possible for me to be this free. I didn't know it was possible for me to be this free. But that grief is the necessary part that is needed to let go of that former self. It's really important. So it's an important part of the journey. So what people misunderstand about being fully expressed, it is not about volume or being loud or and also it's not about being polished. God knows even in this solo cast I am not as polished as I would have wanted to be. I am not maybe as concise in my thoughts as I would have wanted to be. And that's okay. It is about creating this congruence between who you know yourself to be at the core and what you're allowing yourself to express. That's the congruence that is necessary. And that lack of congruence between who you know yourself to be at the core and what you express, when it is sustained, what my experience of it is that it will create disharmony, sometimes even dis-ease within yourself. So therefore, the work of visibility, in my experience, is something that is important for everybody. It's really important for everybody. There are also some moments where allowing yourself to be fully expressed can look like silence. It can look like not saying anything at all. And that too is appropriate. It is appropriate. So, one thing I would love to touch on is I often have people that will get seduced by this kind of work and then they would say they are not ready yet. And what I like to often ask them is, ready for what? They're not yet ready for what? In my experience, readiness is a byproduct of devotion. not perfection. I'm going to say that again. Readiness is a byproduct of devotion and not perfection. Allowing ourselves to be fully seen will require of us to let go of the safety we find in the shadow. And when I often say this, people will give me pushback without realizing, hey, when you repress an aspect of yourself because it makes you feel safe, that says you find your shadow more safe than you find your light. You trust your shadow more than you trust your light. And I'm saying that not as a judgment, I'm saying that as a factual relationship that you currently have with your shadow and with your light. So when I hear people say, I am not ready yet to bring my fullness forth or my truth forth, what I'm hearing is at this time, I trust my shadow to keep me safe more than I trust my light to keep me safe. And a sacred part of this work, it is to expand your definition of safety to include more of the expression of your light. That's a big part of this work. So, a question to ask yourself: what I need to illuminate within myself so that I can feel more safe in the expression of my light is. What is that for you? You really get to explore that. So, the possibilities that become available when you are willing to walk through that threshold and reclaim the holy defiance. And I really think there's a holy defiance needed to allow yourself to be seen. And that holy defiance says, no more. I will no longer hide. I will no longer repress myself. I'm going to meet every fear needed within me, every fear, so that I can unleash my voice, so that I can unleash my true nature. I'm going to deal with the pain that I've tried to outrun. I'm going to meet the suffering that is in there, if needed. I'm going to meet the parts of me that are still convinced that hiding is my safe place. And we're going to have a talk. We're going to have a conversation. That holy defiance that you direct within is actually a sacred key that allows you to do the inner work needed to bring more of your expression forth. And when you do, you unlock your creativity, you open up to deeper intimacy, and you develop actual unshakable self trust. It's like at the core of you, a part of you knows, your heart knows, this person is no longer willing to sell themselves short or to abandon themselves. And you become more magnetic. That is, at the very least, my experience. And this is part of the work we do in Scene, or my 6 week journey that is starting this April, April 27th. It's a 6 week journey, and it's not about necessarily creating a stage for yourself and stuff like that. It's a becoming. It's really a becoming. It's a space where we dissolve the fears that you carry around expression, 1 week at a time, and we're together for 6 weeks. And I consider it as a rite of passage where you learn to become a devotee of your higher self, a devotee of your truth, a devotee of your fullest expression. So, of course, this kind of like journey is more appealing to most creatives and, thought leaders and coaches out there, like the quiet hearted visionaries who have a vision beating through their chest. But beyond that, it is, it also is for people who are not also just looking for a stage, because allowing yourself to be seen can look very differently. It could just be bringing more of your fullest expression in your relationship with your lover, being able to have a hard talk with a family member instead of running and being avoidant and ghosting. We all have our ways. Sometimes we run because we dread being true. We run because we dread being with the aftershock of being real with them. Therefore, we run. So, what I would love to say if you feel compelled to join this journey, makes seeing different. It is it goes beyond what I've seen in most visibility work, which is almost like glorified pep talks that you will receive around allowing yourself to be seen, a boost of confidence. I like to equate it to this thing. If you've ever seen car races, some cars they go to, especially street races or drag racing. Some cars have nitrous in them, and it's this can of gas that you pump in the engine, and it gives you a boost. But the boost will last just, you know, a small moment of time. It's like an orgasm of speed, basically, and you'll go fast for a short amount of time. But that orgasm of speed might also challenge the frame, and that speed might not be sustainable by the frame of the car for a long amount of time. And that's usually how I see traditional visibility work. And the difference with seeing is you are basically not just rewiring the engine to be able to give you more of your authentic power. It's not some external boost, it's not some nitrous, but also you're extending the capacity of the frame. And the frame here is your nervous system. The frame here is the somatic recalibration, your emotional capacity to hold more of your truth. It is not about performance. We call forth essence. And that's the key part. That's the real aspect of it. And it's the reason why a stronger bridge needs to be built between your shadow self and your higher self. Because when both are in harmony, allowing yourself to be really seen becomes natural. It becomes more natural. And there's also the journey of undoing any ancestral imprint of hiding that you may have inherited, because some people they don't even know that they have inherited repression that also needs to be dissolved. And the more you dissolve that, the more you feel free. So for someone who feels the pull but is scared to say yes, what I would say is, even in the fear, in the resistance, there is wisdom. And I would say start there. I'd say start there. And the fear, the resistance, the hesitation is the next initiation. Honor it, but lean in. Lean in the resistance. Have a conversation with it. Ask yourself, what is it inviting me to see within myself? And if this is something that you get called to do, seeing is a place where we're not just going to invite you to be more visible and to do the work of recalibration necessary. We also hold you through the aftershock of allowing yourself to be visible, and you expand your capacity to deal with the aftershock of visibility. The door is open. The door is open. If you feel called, it would be a pleasure to journey with you. Beyond everything, I just want to say this as we wrap up this episode. Every single thing within you, everything within you is serving your full expression. I think a big part of the journey of shadow integration is seeing the unseen within ourselves, feeling the unfelt within ourselves, and expressing the repressed within ourselves, which is the third part, which is visibility, which is seen. I want to thank you for being here. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'm inviting you to review, to like, to subscribe. It's a deep honor to be able to offer this to you. And I hope this expands you even more. And if there are some themes, you would like me to expand more about, it would be a pleasure to receive your input. Thank you for being here. And I will see you soon.